G'day, it's Ron from Elfshot Design. In this video we're going to make a hi-fi cabinet out of steel and timber. It's part industrial, a little bit steampunk, and a whole lot of heavy metal. Let's roll. I'm starting with C-channel for the frame. This stuff is heavy, but I like the material because it gives the piece a solid permanent presence. I'll use the channel as an external frame, so the steel itself forms part of the overall aesthetic. As a designer, I want to achieve form and function. I'm looking for ways to add originality and visual interest, but it also has to solve some kind of problem or serve a functional purpose. When I was a kid, my dad gave me his old Kenwood amplifier and speakers from when he was a young bloke. It definitely influenced me because when I think about it, I've been buying stereos for as long as I can remember. He also gave me his old 50s and 60s records. My favourite record was Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs by Marty Robbins. As a memory to Dad, I painted this Marty Robbins mural to go behind the hi-fi unit that I'm building here now. I'm taking the edges back to raw metal, which I'll seal with clear coat. This contrasts nicely with the black painted steel and copper finishes. Once I've got the frame together and welded on some feet, I'm going to cut out some strips of sheet to make a box. The box will disguise a standard powerboard that'll power all the electronics. It's a fairly standard powerboard with 4 outlets and a USB charging port. I'm cutting out holes that will line up with the on and off switches that each outlet has on the powerboard. Before welding some galvanised pipe, I give it a bath in some hydrochloric acid so I'm not breathing any dangerous fumes while welding. The original idea with the copper pipe was to make it look like power cords were routing through the tubes. This illusion might only work for people looking closely, but I stuck with the concept anyway. After preparing the copper, I move on to the door frame, using some 20mm square hollow section. For the front of the door, I used an offcut of perforated sheet I picked up at the scrapyard. The perforated sheet wasn't big enough, so I framed it with some raw finished sheet steel. The top section will be glass, so you can see the amp behind it. Here I'm recycling some old pine to make the shelves. I cut and painted 2 levels, one for the subwoofer down the bottom, and the top shelf for the amp. Recently got hold of some Blakley's red gum to use in a kitchen reno. I had just enough left on one end to use for this project as well. I'm using a specialised resin made here in Australia, which is designed for deeper pours. It's made using low exotherm material, which means less heat but longer cure times. After mixing for a few minutes, I pour into a second container to reduce the chance of unmixed material making it into the pour. I'm using some black powder based pigment for the colour. The resin pouring stage actually took quite a while, and I had to mix several batches until I had a flat surface ready for finishing. The resin keeps moving for many hours, tracking along any bug holes or cracks inside the timber that you may not even be aware of. I'm not showing all the finishing work, but basically I started with a flap disc to hit the higher spots quickly, then I used a belt sander to get the surface fairly level. From there it was hand sanding from 240 down to finer grades until all the scratches and machine marks were removed. This took quite a few hours. The bottom of the timber has angle iron screwed into it, which helps keep the deeply cracked timber together, as well as giving me something to weld the record player cradle into. You can see here where I've welded in the record player cradle. This is so the deck of the record player ends up sitting level with the top of the timber. I'm applying a satin finishing oil with a foam pad and giving a couple of coats. After sitting to dry for a day or so, I'll flip this over so I can add the LED lighting. The LED lighting strip only came with one 90-degree joiner, so I decided just to wire all the corners myself. I stripped some Cat 5 cable and carefully soldered the corner joins. Let's screw this thing on and fire it up. Please consider subscribing if you want to encourage me to make more films. Thanks for following along, and I hope to see you soon.